I want to thank you for your generosity. I've gotten word that we're not going to have to pass it again a second time. We covered it this week, but next week is Pledge Sunday. You know how that could go. Jesus has been invited to a dinner party, and it promises to be one of the great events of the year. A prominent Pharisee, leader in town, has snagged the talked-about miracle worker to be one of his party invitees. The star guest is a commoner. His dad, they say, is a carpenter in Nazareth. Normally, Jesus wouldn't have the status to be invited for this kind of dinner, but right now, he is all the buzz. He's a celebrity of sorts, going about the region, healing, performing miracles, drawing great crowds. People are following Jesus all over Galilee. Maybe it's his terrific personality. Maybe it is his obvious authenticity. Maybe it's just the spectacle of it all. But in any case, he is the talk of Galilee, and this prominent host has gotten him to agree to attend his gala. Jesus arrives at the party more than a little underdressed. Limos are pulling up, flash bulbs popping. The event is being covered by Galilee magazine. In fact, photographers from the Galilean Business Chronicle are also on hand because this is the who's who of civic and social and religious life in the region. Folks who run in the right circles. It's a catered event. Backyard overlooking the Sea of Galilee. Just stunning. In spite of Jesus' celebrity, his invitation is still a little surprising. Jesus has been invited by Pharisees to 2 other dinners in Luke's gospel, and neither one of them went very well. The last time he was invited by one of the prominent Pharisees of the region, he showed up unbathed and predicted God's judgment on them for failing to tend to issues of justice. He called them unmarked graves, for crying out loud. And yet the Pharisees keep inviting him to dinner. I think we know why. Because then and now we like to be associated with the in crowd. We want to sit at the cool kids' table. And it goes back a long way. Plutarch, in 343 AD, wrote this line in Dinner of the Seven Wise Men. I love this quote. Keep in mind, this is from the 4th century. Men must put up with an inconsiderate companion on shipboard or under the same tent, if necessity compels them to travel or serve in the army. But that to trust to luck regarding the people one is to associate with at table is not the mark of a man of sense. We are known by the company we keep. In biblical times, in the 4th century, and now, we love being associated with the in crowd. I heard the developer of Ponce City Market speak at the Rotary Club not too long ago. After his presentation during the Q&A time, somebody asked him, did you have any big surprises during that development? He said he had 2 big surprises. The first was how quickly the office space filled out, and the second was how slowly the retail space came along. He said he had no idea that Atlanta would gobble up as quickly as they did this cool new office space in the old Sears building. But he said the retail space just about drove him crazy. He said every retailer he called to pitch the idea of opening a store at Ponce City Market asked the same question. Well, who else has committed to be there? Have you gotten Williams-Sonoma, J. Crew, West Elm? Once you land a couple of the big desirable companies, call me back and we'll talk. I only want to go if I can sit at the cool kids' table. So we get it. We get why the dinner party at the Pharisees' house is such a hit. All of the prominent people are there, and not just the prominent, but the righteous. These are the religious leaders who do tithe, who do give to the poor. Yeah, these were the tithers who were doing their part to finance God's big love project. And in addition to that, they gave at the canisters at the gate so that money would be distributed to the poor. These are generous people. They just enjoy the social status associated with going to parties with people of their social order. But in Jesus' world, in the kingdom of God, it's not enough to give and then step back. It's not enough to drop coins in the beggar's cup and go home, because when we give, we're also involved. The women's ministry of a church I know about hosted a Botox party. I'm not making this up. They hosted a Botox party in the home of one of the prominent members of the church. One of the doctors in the church volunteered his time. He gave Botox injections to all the women who signed up for the party. They paid for the Botox injections, and all of that money was collected to go to the church's mission trip. It's not enough to give and step back. It's not enough to drop coins in the beggar's cup and go home. When we give, we're involved. I heard the story of a couple who had gone to counseling. They're sitting with the marriage therapist, and she's just fuming. He doesn't appreciate me anymore. He never compliments me anymore. He never even tells me that he loves me. And he says, I told you on our wedding day that I love you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. If we're giving, we also have to be involved. Giving means being involved in all of the bruised and beautiful humanity that God is reclaiming through love. We give. We fill out our pledge cards. You have done that, right? If not, you have another week. Then we'll pass it twice and 4 times if we need to. But we give by filling out our pledge cards. We give to projects over the year. We write important checks to keep the ministry moving forward. But our giving can never be disassociated from our living. Financial generosity is just one part of generous living. Generosity increases our capacity so that we can live involved lives with love and inclusion for all of God's children. The second half of that sentence is the tough part. For all of God's children. As I mentioned, Jesus has a habit at these dinner parties in Luke to disrupt the ease and the social order. In the midst of the protocols and the manners and the seating charts and the name dropping, Jesus says the uncomfortable truth about banquet invitations. And keep in mind, before I continue, keep in mind, whenever you hear Jesus talking about a banquet, your ears should shoot up a little bit. Because the great banquet table is one of the metaphors for the kingdom. You know that the Messiah is often referred to as the bridegroom. When Jesus starts talking about a banquet and who is included and who's invited and where they sit and all of that, we might ought to hear this at 2 different levels. Because if Jesus is talking about a banquet, it's something bigger than a Galilean barbecue. Anyway, the dinner is splendid. Glasses are tinkling, a discussion over here about the stock market. Over here, she says, "Oh, I do love your dress." They're waiting for the dessert canopies to be served, and Jesus turns to the host and says, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors in case they're going to invite you in return and you'll be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. You will be blessed because they cannot repay you, and you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." Now remember, these are the good people, the righteous, the school board members. These are the generous who serve on the nonprofit boards. These religious leaders are already giving money to help the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind. But you didn't expect them to eat with them, did you? There's a difference between plate giving and life giving. Several years ago, the San Diego magazine, which is the equivalent of our Atlanta magazine. It's the periodical that keeps the in crowd up to date on social life around San Diego. They printed a list of churches in San Diego where the smart people go. Smart, not as in intelligent, but as in chic. 10 or 12 churches in greater San Diego where you can find the chic of town, the who's who of San Diego sitting in the pew next to you. Well, I like chic people too. Some of my favorite people are chic people. But if the chic are also not sitting with the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind, then we have to call it something other than church. A church member sent me a picture this week in response to last week's sermon. It was timely because the picture was the picture of a dinner party, an outdoor dinner party, lights up in the trees and all that, a formal, elegant dinner party. But the dinner table just went on and on and on and on and went beyond the lens of the camera. And then the caption says, "When you have more than you need, build a bigger table, not a higher fence. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed because they cannot repay you. You will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." I do wish we could tame Jesus. As I said, inviting Jesus to a dinner party is risky business because he'll just cut through all the pretense and go to the heart of the kingdom of God, and it makes polite company squirm. I'm squirming a little now because it's hard enough to put 1/10 of what you earn in an offering plate to participate in God's big love project. It's hard enough to have a draft set up on your bank account to participate with what God is doing in the world to care for the poor and the crippled and the lame and the blind. But the untamed Jesus won't leave it there. He keeps pushing things. His radical call is not that I just help provide for the needs of those people outside my circle, but that I invite them to dinner, that I get involved in their lives, that I give the way Jesus looks at giving, which means getting involved and not just dropping coins in the plate. As Frederick Buechner describes it, we always answer with our feet. We get up and we start following, or we do not. Maybe we just plant our feet squarely on the ground, pretend we do not hear. Or we move them all right, but in another direction. But we always answer with our feet. We've been called to get involved, to share our life with people who don't sit at our table, and we answer with our feet. So what would a right step look like for you? What simple movement could you commit that moves you a step closer to being the most inclusive, loving version of yourself? What would be a reasonable first step to broadening your circle of care? A few months ago, Melissa and I were invited to a dinner party. There were 5 or 6 couples, I don't remember. Our hosts were fun and warm and delightful. It was our first time to their home. Others in the group had been before. We had a blast. We stayed long after the dishes had been cleared. We talked and laughed and shared, and the longer we were there, the more intimate the conversation became. And the wife of this charming host couple looked up at me late into the evening and said, and she said it with a little embarrassment, "We host dinner parties pretty often, and this is the first time we've ever had white people at our dinner table." And I was warmed by her confession, her inclusion, her generosity to broaden her circle in a way that included me. The bottom line is there is no cool kids' table in the great banquet feast of God. The table of inclusion extends beyond the lens and off the page. Noblemen sit next to panhandlers, aristocracy and Arab peasants pass each other the cornbread. We do not pick our table mates with regard for their status and what they can do for me. We involve ourselves in the large mix of God's human family. We sit at the table of God's kingdom with the rich and regal on one side of us and want and woundedness on the other, and we invite people who are not like us to be with us. It's stewardship season. But Jesus is pushing our conventional ideas about giving. Yes, we put money in the offering plate. Some significant portion of our church's outlay goes to benevolence and missions. But coins in the pauper's jar is not enough. In the kingdom of God, plate giving must eventually move us into life giving. We're generous with our checkbooks and generous with our spirits. We open the circle of care to include those we don't think ought to sit at the cool table. If we take Jesus seriously, we will grow toward being the best, most loving version of ourselves. What is the first step on that beautiful journey? Would you consider that as we stand and sing and respond?